I'd like to welcome everyone to this, what I consider to be one of the most amazing interviews I've ever done, and that is with a true hero in the profession, Dr. Bob Hoffman, who has a unique place. I've always sort of seen you, Bob, as a macro and micro person in chiropractic. Macro in terms of you've been head of national organizations, state organizations, you've been a leader in many ways. Micro in terms of you get your hands dirty. You actually work one-on-one with lucky doctors to build their practice, to relate to their patients, to understand who they are, because you're very identity-based. So it's a real treat. And I know you can speak on many things. Could give us an example of what we're going to be doing on Saturday on the 18th with ChiroU and how you're going to be, what you're going to be speaking on.
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction, Ted. And after 40 years of being friends, you do know that I've been in every aspect of the profession, heading up the International Chiropractic Association as president 20 years ago and starting a state association in New York and having an extremely large subluxation-based family practice in Long Island, New York, being a best-selling author, filling out 7,300 seats at Nassau Memorial Coliseum for a chiropractic event filled with chiropractic patients, being a practice consultant for over 20 years, consulting with thousands of chiropractors, every different personality, every different school affiliation, every different technique, every different fee system imaginable. Yeah, you've got to get your hands dirty. You're 100% right. And that brings me to the answer to your question. On Saturday, what I'm going to be talking about is the revitalization of chiropractic and chiropractic practice. I believe some of the things that were essential for our survival over the last 2 or 3 or 4 decades have actually stopped our growth, that we need to adjust, we need to adapt. In Chiropractic Philosophy 101, we talk about the fact that when we adapt to the external and internal stresses properly in a timely fashion, we're in a state of ease. When we fail to adapt, we shift to a state of dis-ease. And if we continue to fail to adapt, we move into a state of disease. I contend that the chiropractic profession is in a state of dis-ease. There's some amazing, wonderful things going on, but there's also some huge problems. And just to give you some examples of that, and I'll give you a lot more on Saturday, we're still asking the same case history questions we asked in 1950, and we're living in a different world. We're still doing the same basic exams that we did when we were in school. And again, the game has changed. We're still making the same recommendations care-wise for a far sicker population that their stress load has never been higher in human history. And that can't possibly work. So
years ago, Scott Walker told me that we're not seeing D.D. Palmer's patients.
That's correct. That is totally correct.
Sorry to interrupt, but you
No, it's 100% correct perspective, Ted. The reality is, as a profession, we have failed to adapt to the changing times. I don't want to change chiropractic. I don't have the right to change chiropractic. Chiropractic is what it is. How we communicate it, how we run a business model around it, the speed of our service, the ancillary staff and team we develop, how we market ourselves is dramatically different today than it was 3 years ago, let alone 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. Obviously, we're still dealing with the COVID issue. If that hasn't reminded you that we need to change how we practice, nothing ever will. And one of the unspoken things that have occurred as a result of COVID is that there are thousands and thousands of our colleagues who went out of business because they completely failed to adapt.
Are there? Is it that many?
Yeah. I mean, it's unreported, it's undocumentable. But I mean, I speak to hundreds of chiropractors every week around the world, and it's the feedback I constantly get.
And this inability to adapt goes back to identity, which you've always stressed, understanding of philosophy, and not only what to do, but why do it, which I think has always been your strength.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, if you give people a why, they will comply. And,
oh, I like that. I've never heard that.
And,
Did you just make that up right now?
Say again?
You just make that up right now?
No, I've been saying that for a long time. It's just you finally heard it. But the reality of it is that we speak in doctor speak. We talk to patients as if they graduated with us and they know what we're talking about. And patients don't want to look stupid, so they sit there and they go, good point, and we're duped into thinking that we actually communicated when we failed to communicate. You know,
I remember a teacher in chiropractic school told us this very thing. He says, well, you throw x-rays up there and you point to this and this and this in front of the patient, and they're nodding yes. They have no idea what you're talking about.
True.
We have to deal on their level.
You know, I don't do this as much today as I once did, but I've probably been in about 600 chiropractic practices. I've seen the most amazing, most horrific things you could ever imagine. And I used to sit in on doctors' report of findings because that is the visit that defines us. And oh my God, some of our colleagues who are really nice people, really good doctors who have really beautiful intent, they sit there in front of the patient looking at an x-ray and talking about the eburnation on the joint of Luschka as if their colleagues know what that means, let alone a layperson. I mean, it's just crazy because nobody taught us how to communicate. Nobody taught us how to be persuasive and influential. And one of the things that I've said for a long time, Ted, is in a perfect world, and you would know this better than anyone, those of us who consistently got the best clinical outcomes should have the biggest and most successful practices. But the reality is that's not the case. Who has the biggest and most successful practices are the best communicators. And the ideal 1-2 punch for super success is to be the best clinician and the best communicator. And that's what we try to teach our doctors. And our results show, I mean, our average members growing by like 40% a year.
This is something that people need to hear. They don't realize they have weaknesses and blind spots. And I don't think the schools are teaching them that they have to be well-rounded in so many ways. So this is, I think it's going to be one of the most valuable talks given for ChiroU this weekend.
Yeah. Plus, I promised during my revitalization talk, I'm going to introduce some things that I guarantee none of the people participating have ever heard before. I'm not a big fan of presenting the same material we've all heard 50 or 100 times and putting a new ribbon on it. I like innovation. I like new. I like cutting edge. I like presenting new thoughts, new ways of looking at things. And I'm going to present some things that I absolutely guarantee will blow the people away.
Okay, this is exciting because you're teasing us. But that's part of the marketing. That's part of communicating, isn't it? In fact, in the very way you're talking now, you're showing us things that we should be doing.
100% correct. 100%. And, you know, it's never been easier to succeed at the highest levels in chiropractic, you know, because of my history of being a practitioner, a politician, a coach, being involved in the profession for over 40 years, an activist. I still get questions from chiropractors all over the planet. You know, what do I see as the biggest problems in chiropractic? And again, my number one biggest problem is the failure to adapt. But we also have not handled our weaker areas, like learning how to communicate more effectively, learning how to reduce or eliminate the points of friction that slow down your ability to succeed. Friction in a business is like subluxation in your nervous system. Mm-hmm. It disrupts things. And there are endless points of friction. I'll just give you one or two really basic examples. Asking somebody to pay at the end of a visit, each visit is friction, because every time that patient has to reach into their pocket or their pocketbook, they're trying to decide, is it worth it? Asking a patient to make their next appointment at the end of every appointment creates the same friction phenomena. You know, patients don't mind waiting 10 or 15 minutes in your reception room. But if you're keeping them waiting over 15 minutes, visit after visit after visit, they're not coming back. And they're not telling you that they're not coming back. They just disappear. So we have to find where the points of friction are. We have to, and eliminate them. We have to learn how to be much better communicators and how to market ourselves. God, Ted, when you and I first got into practice, there was no social media. You know, this is a phenomenon.
Hard to believe, huh?
Yeah, but I remember when I got my first fax machine, I thought I was cutting edge.
It
You know,
was.
now nobody uses fax machines. And the world keeps changing, and we have got to continue to adapt, but honor our history and our heritage and our purpose and our mission.
Without a doubt. I think a lot of us don't even know we're not adapting. A lot of us are not aware that we have forgotten so many important things. My feeling is that your talk will cover so many different things, so many different areas that people are going to walk away going, wow, this is something I need to know. And I'm so glad I listened. I know that if you and I could sit down quietly and talk, we'd probably fill a few hours of conversation. You've always surprised me at how many ways you put things together. Part of it is, and I have to speak from my own experience. I'm sorry about this noise. There we go. Too many devices. So part of the thing is that we learn from, I'd like to say we learn from every patient. And for clinical purposes, every patient has a message to teach us. My sense is that you learn from every doctor you communicate with, that you educate.
You bet.
The good and the bad. Have you ever met doctors who you say, oh my God, they're doing something great, I got to let others know. And you've met somebody say, oh my God, they don't know what they're doing. I've got to warn people about them.
There's no doubt about that at all. And it's both. You know, yeah. I'm blessed that I speak to some of the best, brightest in our profession, and I learned what's best in class today, which again is very different than what it was a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But I also hear, because I speak to my clients every week, what works, what never works, and what works occasionally, but only under these circumstances. And if all of our colleagues would know that, it would just make success in practice so much easier and so much more ability to thrive. And that's really what everybody wants. We want to go from survival to success to significance. And it's easy to be significant in our profession. It's easy to be significant in life, but it doesn't just happen because the calendar marches on. It happens because you take a stand, you stick up for your principles, you speak your truth, you do it with love and kindness, you're consistent and persistent, you master the fundamentals. You know, the fundamentals are boring. Fundamentals aren't sexy, but fundamentals is how you build a great business.
You're going to start from the ground up for making a good foundation, which is true for the healing arts, for psychology, for architecture, and absolutely for business.
Yeah. I'm even going to show people how to evaluate the posture of your face instead of just the posture of your body. What facial distortions mean and what they indicate.
I didn't know you did that. This is I don't get to hear your talks enough. Please forgive me. You have really developed my Lord, this is not the same Bob I knew a few years ago.
Because I keep adapting, like I'm recommending that everybody else does.
As they say, you walk the talk.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for this. And I think that you will enrich all of us and make the Chiro Summit a much better experience on a lot of levels. So it's an honor to know you. It's always been an honor to work with you. And thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. And I'm really excited about participating and celebrating our profession's birthday together and hopefully creating a bigger, better, clearer vision of the future.
Excellent. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.